What is scientific thinking? It's definitely not difficult, but requires a portion of deliberate practice. In this video, which I've divided into 5 parts for you, I show you the benefits that come along when you start to practice scientific thinking. At the end of each part, I've summarized the most important key points for you. Now you're probably asking yourself, why even care about scientific thinking? Well, unless you did grow up in a cave, you may have observed that we live in unpredictable times, surrounded by increasing uncertainty, and we better get used to it. Scientific thinking is a viable meta skill everyone can learn, and is a way to respond to the increasing uncertainty with increased cognitive flexibility, improved problem-solving skills, and greater adaptiveness. But what is scientific thinking? Scientific thinking is a goal-directed pursuit of knowledge. A way to find the path by moving our knowledge threshold through the cloud of uncertainty, discovering missing knowledge that is needed to reach our goals. In that process, every step we take, and from the point where we are to the point where we want to be next, becomes an experiment where we need to learn from our fallacies. Basically, we start to move our knowledge threshold past obstacles, preventing us from moving in the desired direction, and as what we already know or able to is no longer enough. The experimenting process itself is an empirical process, and all experiments must be falsifiable. New knowledge can then be created when we collect and compare facts through observation and evaluation of data. What makes a big difference between a scientific thinker and a non-scientific thinker is that a scientific thinker is already aware of that our thinking and perception of reality is often incomplete or wrong. Non-scientific thinkers, on the opposite, tend to make many unconscious assumptions and often do not even realize when they become a subject to their own preconceptions and habits. To roughly illustrate how fast our brain fills in the missing gaps and how quickly we make unconscious assumptions about reality when we are close to our current knowledge threshold, I have prepared a small experiment for you. Are you ready for it? Then try to read this text. What may just happen to you is very natural, a part of our evolution, and can even be useful in many situations. Sometimes we are in a great need to think and react fast. Unfortunately, our biases and habits are also among the biggest obstacles in a time where we need to change how we think and act so badly. For example, when we strive for more sustainable products, services, new forms of collaborations, and to keep our businesses and society alive. We simply learn more and faster by testing our ideas, not if we waste time in endless and often dysfunctional discussions. However, once you act and start thinking more scientifically, you begin to serve yourself with an antidote and a way to overcome some of your biases and so reduce dysfunctional conflicts. That said, let's get to the key points for part 1. Scientific thinking is a way to cope with the increasing uncertainty of our time. It increases our cognitive flexibility, improves our problem-solving skills and adaptability. It is a goal-directed pursuit to knowledge, and where new and missing knowledge is created to achieve challenging goals. Unfortunately, our preconceptions, biases and habits are obstacles preventing us to see beyond our blind spots. However, scientific thinking can help us to get more comfortable in situations where we simply don't have the answer. So how can you learn scientific thinking? One way to learn scientific thinking is to start practice to act more scientifically, utilizing what Mike Rother, after years of research, called Toyota Kata. The name Kata here roots back to the practice drills used to teach and learn martial arts. The word Kata also stands for a way of doing something, for example practicing specific movement patterns. First, and when we internalize the fundamental basics through the deliberate practice, we can adapt to new situations and basically create our own unique style. Mike developed 2 types of kata, and both of them can be practiced with so-called starter kata. The first kata is called the improvement kata. I call it the bridge to greater adaptiveness, improved problem-solving skills, and a model for practical scientific thinking. This model consists of 4 steps and is quite similar to the scientific model used in professional science, but more on that later. The very first step in the improvement kata is to decide on a challenge or in a business context to understand the challenge and direction given by our company. The Kata Kata we use is a storyboard and where we keep track on our experiments and learnings. In step 2, we go back to the point where we actually are. We get a good grasp on our current condition by collecting facts and data to describe the conditions we are in right now. The Kata Kata for step 2 includes an analysis where we, for example, study the actual operating pattern and look out for variation. In the third step, we decide on the next target condition, the next destination toward the challenge. Based on the studies we took in step 2, we ask ourselves where we want to be in a couple of weeks from now and to which conditions. Before I go to step 4, I would like to clarify a question that often appears when people read or hear the word condition. Why do we call it a condition, not just a target, a goal, or simply for an outcome, and does it make any difference? Actually, there are a couple of problems with outcome measures. For example, do outcome measures not lead to sustainable changes of how we approach something? Further, outcome measures rarely improve interrelated processes. And next, outcome measures often come with a lot of backdoors and shortcuts, which often do harm in the long term. You can't achieve a certain income, specific quality results of your products or services directly. For example, you will never live a healthier life if you chase the next trend diet for a couple of weeks instead of working on the way and the conditions of how you approach your challenge. Learning to act more scientifically, applying the means of the improvement kata, helps to deepen the understanding of characteristics and interrelations that in a system improve the whole and by that the outcome. Good outcomes follow when processes improve. That said, and as we have concluded on our success characteristics, the outcome performance and operating pattern in step 3, we finally start to experiment quickly forward in step 4. Here, we do not want to overthink it, but simply pick one obstacle from the parking lot and from which we think that it keeps us from reaching our next target condition. We note down our idea as a hypothesis and what we expect will change. All of that on our experimenting record, the Kata Kata in step 4, and then simply give it a shot. Of course, that early in the process we may not know exactly what keeps us from reaching our desired next target condition. Yet, and what is more important, is that in this process we learn quickly from comparing our ideas and predictions with what really happens. At this point of the story, you hopefully don't fall in the trap of thinking this as an easy step-by-step guide. Following these steps alone, applying the Kata Kata won't make you a scientific thinker overnight. Even worse, if you think that way, you're already a victim of your own preconceptions and you will most likely become a permanent beginner or to one of those who rapidly think that kata are just another problem-solving tool that can be implemented for quick results. However, kata aren't tools, but a good way to practice in deepening an underlying pattern of scientific thinking and acting. But before we go even deeper, and given you want more than scratching the surface, let's have a quick look at the key points from part 2. We can learn to act more scientifically, practicing what Mike Rother called Toyota Kata. The first kata is the improvement kata and a model for practical everyday science. This model consists of 4 steps similar to professional science, and each step is supported by a Kata Kata which we can then practice. If you practice these steps as if the kata were a tool, you will remain a beginner or an implementer but not a scientific thinker. Given you really want to learn scientific thinking, get a coach. Of course, good coaches do not grow on trees, and therefore Mike Rother developed a second kata, the coaching kata. This kata builds up on the fundamentals of the improvement kata and basically does 2 things. The coaching kata helps someone who applies the practice of the improvement kata to stay inside the corridor of correctly practicing the Kata Kata. And secondly, helps the coach to improve its own coaching skills. On top of that, coaching the improvement kata provides a deeper look into scientific thinking. The coaching kata comes with 2 types of Kata Kata. A basic 5 questions card for the coach, following the structure of the storyboard, and secondly, the daily coaching cycle, which ensures that practicing scientific thinking is a daily act of deliberate practice. These coaching cycles lasts somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes, depending on how experienced the coach already is. Good coaches may even get below 10 minutes, as they may have learned to ask deepening questions to detect a practitioner's knowledge threshold quickly, which in return helps a practitioner to improve the development of scientific thinking as a meta skill much faster. However, there are some parts worth to mention about the coaching kata. First, the coaching kata is not the same as life or business coaching, even we can achieve challenging goals. Instead, coaching the improvement kata is really about developing the meta skill of scientific thinking. Secondly, you can't really coach what you did not internalize yourself. You will start as a new learner, learning the improvement kata. You will follow a steep learning curve, get better over time, and will never stop learning. And third, some people tend to think that because of their status or position, they are automatically skilled kata coaches, and even worse, do no longer need to improve processes or their coaching skills. This is of course fundamentally wrong, as scientific thinkers remain humble and lifelong learning improver. The latter is one of the most fundamental ingredients that made Toyota so successful for many decades. A dedicated leadership culture of humble lifelong learner and improver. You may like to remember that Toyota Kata is a way for anyone who do not have access to Toyota seasoned leaders to learn some fundamental basics of leading to learn. That said, and if you want to avoid pitfalls, the best way might be to get in contact with one of the many Kata schools around the world. These schools house many well-experienced and humble practitioners who are eager to help and support. Kata schools are networks for learning and exchange, and some of them even offer introduction courses and facilitate leadership dojos for companies and individuals who truly want to make change happen. Now it's time to get to the key points of this part. If you want to take the practice of scientific thinking seriously, you will need a coach for deliberate practice. The coaching kata is a means to develop coaching skills, and it comes with 2 starter kata. The coaching kata is not about life coaching, but to help someone learning the meta skill of scientific thinking. Regardless if you are currently coaching or improving, you will always be in a need to remain a humble learner and improver. The kata was developed for those who do not have access to seasoned Toyota leaders but want to learn more about the ingredients that made Toyota so successful. And if you want to avoid pitfalls in your practice, reach out to a Kata school. Make it to this point, and before I like to wrap the entire topic up for you, I would of course love to share what happens if you anchor this practice in your organization, and with a goal to provoke the emergence of a true learning organization that keeps learning and makes daily improvement a part of the daily business. For this example, imagine Jenny, the CEO of a company I call KitchenCraft. KitchenCraft designs and manufactures modern kitchens. Recently, Jenny and her team came together to review and update their strategy. One of the conclusions drawn out of that was that KitchenCraft is challenged to adapt more quickly to market trends and taking advantages of yet undiscovered market potentials. Among the various breakthrough challenges that emerged, KitchenCraft decided on a direction that will enable their customers to order modular kitchens made of 100% recycled materials, manufactured and delivered within 5 working days. Of course, KitchenCraft isn't able to do all of that at once, but aims to achieve that challenge within 3 years' time. And because KitchenCraft has gained experience applying the starter kata in the past, people feel more comfortable to respond to such challenge. Leo, for example, responsible for the overall value stream, will immediately start to gather facts and data to draft a first target condition in form of a future state value stream map. The map itself remains in draft, as Leo is aware of that his thinking is mostly incomplete and wrong, and that he will need to share and align across all levels to fill in the missing gaps. Therefore, Leo meets with different departments, aligning on the direction and asking for proposals. However, a department leader does not know all the details either, and so the talk continues. A catchable process emerges, and where the whole company gets involved, aligned, and even more importantly, challenged to leave their comfort zone and to create new knowledge. What follows is a learning journey guided by daily coaching cycles across all levels. With each cycle, new knowledge is made available to the organization, and whenever an obstacle is discovered, that originates from another level or department, the obstacle is investigated and eliminated in the level it belongs to. Ultimately, and through this learning process, KitchenCraft made improvement of their entire system a part of their daily business. Sure, surprises will continue to happen, but KitchenCraft has learned to deal with them and to adapt quickly and became a highly adaptable learning organization. Time for the key points. The practice of Toyota Kata can be anchored in an organization to achieve challenging goals. It helps to challenge and align all levels in one common direction. Further, the practice helps to make implicit knowledge available and transferable, and so provokes the emergence of a learning organization. Wrap up. If you like to learn a meta skill that will help you, your family, friends and your organization to cope and thrive in the uncertainty of our time, scientific thinking is for you. A goal-directed pursuit of knowledge to achieve tough and challenging goals. An act, not another tool. A way of thinking that can produce new viable knowledge and help to discover new solutions to existing problems and the emerging challenges ahead. Scientific thinking is indeed comparable to professional science, and science is what made it possible for you to watch this video. However, while professional science is mostly about dealing with things that already exist, the practice with the improvement kata is more about mastering a challenge, a practical everyday science. In both cases, we observe, ask questions, make up a theory, formulate a hypothesis and conduct experiments. We analyze data and facts, compare them with our expectations and form conclusions from which new theories may emerge. Both approaches are empirical, provoke logical thinking and provide us, among other things, with a healthy dose of skepticism so we do not get caught by our biases and blind spots in our thinking. On top of that, the practice of scientific thinking can channel our creativity, can improve our resilience and increases our self-awareness, which makes us more adaptable in uncertainty. The best part might be that everyone can practice scientific thinking with Kata Kata, and wherefore a unique aspect of Toyota Kata is that it combines routines of scientific acting with principle of deliberate practice. Companies who manage to create a challenge engine coupled with the practice of scientific thinking not only develop a mass of competent and highly adaptable problem solver, but strengthen their own survival capabilities, a pulling heartbeat for learning and innovation. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." I think this quote is close to the practice of Mike Rother's Toyota Kata. So let me ask you, what is your challenge and by what means will you approach it? I do that by practicing and coaching scientific thinking, helping people and companies to break with their paradigms and status quo.